When I don't track, I eat so many calories that I wasn't aware of. I feel stuck in this cycle of when I track, I lose weight, and when I don't track, I gain weight. I felt a bit of grieving every time I saw good progress from tracking my food, because I don't want to be a person that has to track my food forever. And I feel stuck in this cycle of like, when I track, I lose weight, and when I don't track, I gain weight. A lot of people can probably relate to it, where you feel like you can figure out how to do something, but you can't figure out how to make it stick. You can't hold on to it. And that's where I was before. It was the wrong mindset, because it was preventing me from doing a thing that doesn't require some level of expertise or competency. It requires showing up. I can go on vacation and I can eat all the fried foods I want. And also I can come back and get on the scale and realize I went up a few pounds and make an adult choice about what I want to do about it. And it can be a motivator, or it can be a shame spiral, which for years it was a shame spiral. And it's just no longer a shame spiral for me. It is a motivator. What do the next couple of months look like? What can I really do in those couple of months? Where do I need to start?
So speaking of, between the accountability, the support, leveraging the tracking, indoctrinating the strength training process, what have your results been to date?
So
what's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. I am your host, as always, Ben Brown, owner and head coach here at Body Systems. And if you know me, and if you've listened to previous episodes, then you've heard me say it 100 times. I work with high-performing men and a few badass women. And today's guest is one of those women. Now, Kylie is the rare top 1%. She's the kind of woman who challenges herself, who gets uncomfortable, who is consistently raising her standards and doing everything she can to keep them there. And in this conversation, we unpack how she went from an all or nothing sort of militant mindset to what we call an empowered operating system that she now can live with and thrive with. She's lost upwards of 60 pounds of body fat. She's gained lean muscle tissue. And more importantly, she's kept it off while juggling kids, international moves, a real demanding career, travel, and all of the nuances of real life. And in this conversation, we get into the mindset shift from shame to extreme ownership. We talk about how she learned to love the strength training process and why tracking became a tool instead of a prison for her. And then lastly, how doing this with her husband, Adam, who also, he lost probably 30 to 40 pounds, has absolutely transformed their family, culture, and their life. And so this conversation that I just felt so inclined to share with you, it's about leadership, it's about consistency, it's about deciding who you want to be and then doubling down on yourself by committing to the process. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Here is my friend, Kylie. Kylie Rogers, what is going on? Welcome. Great to be interviewing you here. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much, man. Really excited to be here and excited to share a little bit about my experience over the last couple of years.
So you and your husband, Adam, have been a part of the program for the last couple of years. Actually, you haven't been part of the program for the past several months, but I mean, in all fairness, you're always part of the program. But actively as clients, you guys kind of ebbed and flowed over a couple of years stretch, and both of you excelled. And so I wanted the opportunity really just to be able to share your journey with our audience and anyone who wants to listen about what kind of the real world trajectory looks like, because I think for both of you guys, it's nuanced, right? And, you know, you guys have kids and you're living abroad and it's like busy careers and all of these moving pieces that so many of us have. That is the real world. And it's so much of how do we navigate that stuff realistically to be able to get incredible results like you have? And then how do we be able to, you know, put the right spin on things in terms of how do we maintain that? So maybe we just start at the beginning of like, where were you when you first reached out? Like, why did you reach out? Tell me just briefly about like your past history, dieting experience.
You know, I'm coming up right now on my 47th birthday, and I think I was 44, 45 when I reached out. the post-COVID years. I was down to post-kiddos in 2020, early 2020, best shape of my adult life at that time, and had a pretty good idea of how to keep myself there with militancy, with like zero
Mm.
moderation and zero ability to flex. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and we were locked out of gyms, and
Real
I
quick,
wasn't
what was like militancy for you? What did that entail
yeah.
from a dieting and exercise standpoint?
Sure. So for me, always the controllable was the food, because I'd learned maybe in my mid 20s about tracking. And I'd also learned that when I don't track, I eat so many calories that I wasn't aware of. And so
Yeah.
then really post kids, I had kids in my early 30s. I would intermittently track, but I would always, like, if I stopped tracking, 10, 15, 20 pounds would creep on, and I'd go back to
Mm.
tracking. And candidly, my exercise regimen, while I was active, it was primarily focused on cardio at the time. I had I was very intimidated about lifting. If I did it, it was exercises that I knew I could do exactly right. So it was very
Mhm.
uneven. And then also just a lot of active mountain biking and snowboarding and things like that. But being active, we also lived on the East Coast at the time. So walking everywhere was something pre COVID that, like, getting 10,000 steps a day was just part of my routine. It wasn't part of
Yeah.
exercising for me. But COVID hit, and that all kind of went to, I don't know, like all of us, like we were
Yeah.
thrown for it. And so there was no walking around. We came out west, and pretty much everybody was homebound. There was, in those early days, there was no like getting out. We got out in nature, but there wasn't a lot of the group activities that we'd been doing that were active. And because I
Yeah.
was so intimidated by lifting, like I started watching some of your early videos during COVID. I know you and my husband Adam have known each other for a long time, and I was still, even from the comfort of my home, quite intimidated at like how to get started and how to progress and
Mm.
what to do. And so those 4 years, 3 or 4 years post COVID, my weight just went up and up and up until I topped out. I think we were just looking at data. I topped out at almost 220, and probably through the just tracking food and just
Yeah.
basically like getting as few calories in as possible, not in a healthy way, but in a way that
Mm.
like I knew I would lose over probably a couple of months, lost weight. But I, like, it was so hard, and it was so like it had to be obsessive. There was like no moderation. So to your question about why I reached out and when I reached out, again, I'd been following your coaching for a while, and I really just got tired of like not having a solution that wasn't like a starvation diet, or trying to cut as many carbs as possible, or like basically something that really made life not very fun.
Yeah.
And I really
Yeah.
wanted to find something more consistent. So that was my initial reach out. We set goals around weight, but it really, in my mind, I was like, I want something different that hasn't worked the first 30 years of my
Hmm.
adult life, to consistently find a path where I'm not on and off and on and off and on and off, but I'm just living my life and making good choices when I can, and
Yeah.
rebounding from when I need to or want to make choices that aren't so good.
So what do you think was kind of like when you joined the program? What do you think initially, or if you can remember back, what do you think was kind of the most enlightening or liberating aspect of the coaching program that made you feel good about kind of the trajectory that you were on?
Two things. The first was that I definitely came in, and because I had a history with food tracking, I was like, oh, this is where I can be an A student. And
Right.
and so for the first probably 4 to 6 weeks, I was seeing some consistent progress because of the calorie deficit, but I was attributing it to the skills I already had. And when I would make choices that, like I was very aware of the fact that you were looking at my data, and I was doing it very externally motivated. I was like, oh, I'm going to
Yeah.
show Ben what a good
Yeah.
tracker
How
I
good
can
I am.
be.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so
I'm
it
such
was
a good
probably at
student.
the 4 to 6 week time period. And during that time, also like adding the consistent exercise and adding like the strength training that wasn't intimidating to me. Like it felt very clear. It was shorter sessions than I thought it would be. Like I thought, oh, I could never do an exercise program guided by a coach because it'll take me hours a day and you just made it so accessible. And so at some point, probably in the 4 to 6 week time frame, I had two things going on. And I remember we talked about this. One, I shared with you that I felt like a bit of grieving every time I saw good progress from tracking my food, because I felt like I don't want to be a person that has to track my food forever. And I feel stuck in this cycle of like, when I track, I lose weight. And when I don't track, I gain weight. And we had a really great conversation about like, that it doesn't have to be this, like, I shouldn't go into it with this mindset of like, well, I have to just do this program forever. And instead thinking about what are the tools I'm building. And so very early on, when we started talking about this as a set of tools, as opposed to a way of losing weight,
Right.
it started to change. It took months. And even still,
Sure.
every now and again, something will creep into my head and I'll be like, that is an old idea about what I need to do. But in general, it was my mindset around, I just realized over time, and I think it was October or November when I signed up. And so I went through the holidays. We went on this amazing vacation to Puerto Rico. I ate flan almost every day. And I was still like, I tracked it, but like, I was still like, this is what living is. It's not like resigning myself to tracking forever or thinking that exercise has to be this big insurmountable thing to strength train, but it's consistently showing up, even if there were inconsistencies in my showing up. Like some days I didn't feel like it, and some days I like really was like, well, if I'm going to have flan for dessert for dinner, breakfast doesn't matter, lunch doesn't matter. And then I'd like reorient myself. And those calls during those early days were super critical on that, because it became, and I'm jumping forward a couple of years, but like, it is just not my mindset now. Like I do not feel like if I eat dessert or eat a couple of white chocolate chips that I've lost like the entire like battle. I used to feel like it was a battle. I no longer feel like it's a battle. I feel like it is really just my day-to-day health. And Adam and I regularly, when we are walking or going to the gym, talk about and say, really our only regret is that we didn't take this level of seriousness. And I don't mean like the time commitment, but like the level of like showing up for ourselves every day earlier, while also congratulating ourselves for in our mid to late 40s, like doing this for ourselves and our kids, and just feeling better, candidly better than I ever have, despite being as old as I've ever been.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, that's incredible. And it's challenging a mindset shift to look at. I mean, I think for you, and you'll agree, is to look at the tracking as liberating. And it's, as you said, it's simply a tool to help us make the best decisions under the circumstances. And at the end of the day, we're not nitpicking over calories or food choices. Rather, we're looking at circumstances and situations and existing behaviors and thought processes so that you can give yourself permission to just be who you are and be who you want to be and live the lifestyle that you want to live within the confines of like also learning how to eat like an adult and be responsible for the decisions that you make, just like we do with our bank account. And, just like we're forced to do in every other area of life, where ironically, it's like the one area where we don't take responsibility, And so that's really what the process is about, which obviously for you was, again, gave you that level of permission and flexibility to not feel like you have to white knuckle it. And just because you're tracking eating clean and never eat the things that you want, and then at the same time experience that level of frustration and fear of like, well, what do I do when I'm not tracking, as if your behaviors are going to change?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, just recently we went on vacation for a couple of weeks, and I didn't track, I didn't think about it. And I came home and truly I didn't think about it. I was also in Texas, lots of fried foods, lots of things I absolutely love and don't normally have access to, and came home a couple pounds up over 2 or 3 weeks. and felt so empowered. Like this was a truly, I could never have imagined a few years ago this feeling that really is the gift that working with you and the program gave me, which is that I am an adult and I am in charge of my choices, and I can go on vacation and I can not think about my food, and I can eat all the fried foods I want. And also I can come back and get on the scale and realize I went up a few pounds and make a choice right then, an adult choice about what I want to do about it. And
Yeah.
it can be a motivator or it can be a shame spiral, which for years it was a shame spiral. And it's just no longer a shame spiral for me. It is a motivator of like, okay, what are the next, I really just take the program mindset. What do the next couple of months look like? What can I really
Yep.
do in those couple of months? Where do I need to start? Do I need to start back with more consistency in the gym since we've been out of the gym for 2.5 weeks on vacation? Or start with just like figuring out where I am and what I'm consuming every day. And again, I just had this set of tools that felt so empowering and so easy. I cannot say enough. I never imagined being able to feel empowered about, because before it would have been falling off a wagon. Oh, I went on vacation, I fell
Mm-hmm.
off the wagon, I
Yeah.
did whatever. And it
Right.
just, the lack of, like, it's almost better than therapy having this set of tools, like the lack of like feeling like I didn't ruin anything, but I also have the tools and my own decisions to like get, I even hesitate to say the word back on track because there is no track. It's just like the life we're living. And sometimes we go on vacation and eat fried foods. And sometimes we're stressed at work and we like, want a glass of wine and like whatever it is, there's room, just like you said, in all other aspects of our life. We hold ourselves more accountable as adults than we did when we were growing up. But for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
with food and exercise, we really struggle to, many people struggle to do that for a really long time because
No.
it somehow feels out of our control. And candidly, Ben, as we get older, it does feel harder. But that is another like gift of the empowerment for me is I'm lamenting perimenopause and menopause in other ways, but I'm not like spending my days lamenting how hard it is because I have a set of tools and I have like, basically just tweaking how I'm using them to mitigate, whatever I'm navigating, whether it's something in my
Well,
life
you've
or
learned to
something in my
enjoy the,
body.
yeah, I mean, you've learned to enjoy the process too. And speaking of, it's just fundamentally become part of your guys' lifestyle. Like you guys revolve. It's so, I love our conversations now when I message you guys and, you're like excited about showing me the new equipment in the gym and the gym space that you're working through and you get it. And how has your relationship with the gym and strength training contributed to where you are now?
Absolutely. And that's probably because I came in with some knowledge of the food habits. The biggest delta for me from the beginning to the end, as I already talked about, was the mindset of moderation and regular life. But this empowerment and feeling of capability that I feel around the gym. And I think I told you at one point in the middle, like, I never thought I would be excited to go to the gym all the time. And at some point, I asked you if I could have 4 workouts instead of 3. I'm consistently going to the gym 5 days a week now. And again, like, somebody's going to watch this that's known me for many years. It's going to be like, she's telling the truth. Like, to me,
Mm.
gyms were like something to torture myself through to get to as a means to an end. And now,
Yeah.
today, they are a gift I give to myself most weekdays. And there's all kinds of things I don't know in the gym. I literally today was like creeping outside the Pilates reformer room, watching some people doing a class, trying to figure out if I could take that class and like
Mm.
how dumb I would feel or whatever. But I'm filled with a sense of like empowerment in that it's actually not, just like anything in life, it's not that hard to figure out. And we often throw obstacles up, like I did for years with strength training, that it would be so hard and I wouldn't know how to do it and I wouldn't know how to use a piece of equipment or I wouldn't know how to lift or whatever. And so a big piece that the accessibility of the program gave me was the initial bite-sized and step by step, and again, the consistency of every week showing up and over time feeling like it's not about if I know how to use that machine or if I know how to take that class. It's about wanting to move my body and recognizing that when I don't move my body and don't lift things, I
Mm.
don't feel as good. I don't feel like physically and mentally, I don't feel as good. And so that gets me over the hump of any sort of intimidation, and it makes me feel competent in a way that, again, I would never have said that. I would never have said that I would go to the gym every day or said that I was competent in going to the gym. And it was the wrong mindset because it was preventing me from doing a thing that doesn't require some level of expertise or competency. It requires showing up, and that's the difference.
Yeah. Well, that's among many things, but absolutely commending you on just how you showed up and consistently wanted to learn and grow and challenge yourself and be okay getting uncomfortable and challenging your belief systems. And those are all the qualities of someone who does get the type of results that you have gotten and have continued to sustain and then some. And so speaking of between, obviously the accountability, the support, the, leveraging the tracking, indoctrinating the strength training process and learning to love, being in the gym and push yourself in the gym, what have your results been to date?
Since, whatever it was, 3 or 4 years post COVID, when I topped out at 220, I think I probably reached out to you in the low 200s. So formally,
Yeah.
probably it's about 40 pounds, but again, in
Yeah.
all, and I would attribute it to 60 pounds. And I would say the bigger thing than losing the weight is that I've kept it off. Like truly, for the first time in my life, I think last May is when I hit the low 160s. And again, I'm somebody who's swung pretty wildly over time. We were on a 6 week trip last summer, and you remember this, we didn't have a scale and we couldn't find, like, we went to the gym and asked for a scale and it was in a locked room. And so we had this whole thing, and I was like, what's going to happen? I'm going to go back. And I went back 3 pounds down, over that six
Mm.
weeks. But then I maintained for the whole next year. And I think, within literally 2 or 3 pounds, and that's just not me. Like that is 30
That is
years of my
now.
adult life. It is now. It is absolutely me. But 30 years of my adult life, it was like, you don't have a scale and you're not militantly tracking food every day. It's just creeping up slowly. And the fact that I have a tool set, and then even more than that, like the way I feel in doing anything active, the way I feel and look in my clothes for the first time ever in this area around my neck and shoulders, where I've got like some tone and muscle that I just never had because I was never doing that kind of strength training. I feel like powerful and like I feel, I mean, I don't, you can't ever feel invincible, but I do feel like ready to tackle something, both, maybe physically and mentally, but like
Mm.
it's just very, very different. These are silly things, but like moving stuff around the house or taking a chair up the stairs or things that for many, many years felt like a hard thing, I do without thinking about it. So I would say like lots of actual physical results, 50 to 60 pounds, more inches than I can count. We'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
And on every part of my body, my shape of my body and how things moved around, how my legs like slendered out for the first time in my life, and things that I'd always told myself that I was really heavy in the hips and the butt. And certainly I carry a little extra there, but it is like it was all a product of like not moving very much or very with any sort of like goals around what muscles I was building.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like I mean that's incredible and I love hearing all of those things and I can obviously, anyone watching this or even listening to this can hear it and see it, in you and especially if you look at like the before and after pictures or before and whenever those those last set of pictures were because obviously it's ongoing so I don't like to say before and after but just the journey that you are on now your husband Adam he actually had some really remarkable results too. I think he lost 30 or 40 pounds and trimmed up really nicely. But how has your guys, your parents, how's your relationship and sort of life changed by virtue of going through this process together? I'm curious.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and one that Adam and I talk about, as I mentioned earlier, all the time. I mean, his results, again, that 30, I think it's 35 or 40 pounds. He's certainly the leanest since we met in our early
Yeah.
30s. And, he's an athlete and has stayed in decent shape most of his life, but the
Yeah.
ability for him to really focus on that. I think there's probably three things I would say about like what it has done for our relationship and our parenting. The first I'll say is pretty personal. Like, I don't know how or when, but at some point, our oldest, who's now 13, got in his mind that when he would talk about Adam and I, he would talk about Adam being the one who was always doing something and me being the one who was always on my computer. And like
Mm,
one Christmas, he made me a puff paint shirt, and even the word lazy was on it. And this is really, I mean, this is kind of personal because also, if you know Cullen, he probably thought it was like a joke, right? It wasn't like he was
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I think, but fundamentally, at somewhere along the way, I was definitely more of the couch potato. I have an office job. I was very focused on work for many, many years, still am, of course, but like that was my persona. And I was reflecting the other day that it's probably been 2 or 3 years, and that like he wouldn't even remember that. If I brought that up for Cullen, he would feel like, what are you even talking about? Because going to the gym and moving, and as a family going out and walking on the weekends, or the kids are, now they're getting at 11 and 13 interested in working out and interested in doing body weight things and interested in when they might be able to do weights. I think it started a family conversation around how you take care of yourself. It also started a family conversation around, candidly, protein, right? And we always have been fairly healthy eaters, but as a neurospicy bunch with a couple of us with ADHD, like eating
Yeah.
protein has many benefits more than just my physical health. Like it, and so to be able to talk about that with kids and to be able to walk the walk, I think is huge. And then the last thing is just Adam and I's relationship with each other. I think there is like putting yourself and your health first. And then we share that also. We don't always go to the gym together, but a lot of days we do. We rarely interact at the gym, but we like meet up after,
Mhm.
and we, go and come home and make a shake, and then we go about our
Yeah.
days. And that is, again, a gift that we can be proud of each other. We can be proud of ourselves. We can reflect. And we talk a lot about like how hopefully we are raising two kids that never have to sort of undo their mindset around exercise and food in order to be on a healthy path, because the mindset we are introducing now is the one. So it's probably been one of the most rewarding parts about this is what it's done for us as a family.
Yeah. I'm so glad you shared that. It makes me think. I mean, I think at the end of the day, and I speak to this a fair amount lately just because I think, with long-term success, it really, especially if you're in committed relationships, it really begs sharing a common value system, a common vision, for your future together, especially if you have kids, and it shares, the necessity to have a certain level of communication. And if you want to excel in this world, if you want to be able to take control and make the appropriate decisions around your nutrition and your training, you need support, right? Especially when you have kids and it's like
Absolutely.
you can't have someone like bringing in fast food and you're like, I'm dedicated to eating, lean proteins and vegetables here. Like this isn't working here. And then it creates friction and resentment and resistance. And right. And I'm sure whomever is listening to this can probably resonate because we all have people in our lives that have put us in that position. And hopefully, we've gently pushed them to the outskirts. But all of that just to say, I just fundamentally, it's such a necessity to have a partner that's on the same page. And for the fact that you guys are able to do this together and support each other and be on the same wavelength. And, you know, like Christine and I were just, I mean, prior to this, I finished a workout and was like, hey, you want to go for a quick walk? Yeah, we'll go for, she dropped what she was doing, quick walk together. And it's just like, it adds such a beautiful element to life, and of course what we want to set the example for our kids. So I want to be respectful of your time, but I guess one of my questions and thoughts is, had we not ended up working together, where do you think you would be now?
somewhere on that yo-yo. Like there is no doubt. Like, I love to geek out about, and for a very long time have been somebody who likes to figure out the hack of things or figure out the way to program my life into some sort of system that is optimal. And I had no concept of how to sustain it, right? And this, we could apply this to
Mm,
lots of other things as well, but certainly on nutrition and the ability to sustain my consumption, like, how, you know this about me, but now I'll say it on the recording. But like, I love a good late night bowl of cereal, and like for so many years
that's
of my
right.
life,
Right.
it
Yeah.
was my guilty pleasure. And we didn't buy sugary cereal so that it was like a late night bowl of, you know, bran flakes or something. But even that, like, I had no ability to like moderate. It was like such a comfort for me that I would choose that every time over. Now I like just that gift of knowing that I can choose to have a late night bowl of cereal if I want. I can be at a friend's house who has Fruity Pebbles, which are like my childhood favorite cereal, and I can eat
Totally.
half a box if I want, but I have to think about what the consequences are of that. I have to think about how I'm going to feel, and I make trade-offs. And that, I would be in the same stuck cycle. I think a lot of people can probably relate to it, where you like feel like you can figure out how to do something, but you can't figure out how to make it stick. You can't hold on to it.
Yeah.
And that's where I was before. And now I feel like with diet, not even diet, just with nutrition and exercise and with consistency, which again means I get in some time in the gym, even if I don't have much time, or even if I need to do a quick workout here, that consistency, like, I show up for myself. And that is, I would not be there. I cannot imagine without direct coaching and truly, like, it was like building blocks over the last few years that it's given
Yeah.
me the ability to be
There's
where I am.
there's tremendous power and wisdom in what you just shared because so many people that we work with come in like you. I mean, hard chargers, analytical, type A personalities of wanting to have a system and knowing that they want and need some semblance of structure and just kind of give me the plan and I'll go by the numbers and I want to see the data. And I love that. I love that mindset. But what I was hearing from you was very much learning that that doesn't apply to this process. And it's giving yourself permission and learning how to learn to live in the gray here of acknowledging like there's no perfect plan, there's no perfect number, there's no perfect foods, there's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong, but it's very much the ebbs and the flows and the nuances and the undulations of just how real life works to the degree that numbers are still important. We still want to be objective. We still want to be able to use data to make informed decisions, but there's just a myriad of ways where we can leverage the data to work out in the best way for us while still giving ourselves the flexibility and freedom that we need within our lives, right?
100%. Like, integration is the key. Like, that's what I got, if nothing else, and all of the other things, but integration into who I am and what I do every day instead of a program to follow. And that,
Yeah, well,
again,
yeah, I mean, that's great. Integration is beautiful because we call it your own personal operating system. And like now you have
exactly.
the structure, yeah, you have a personal operating system around your nutrition and fitness and lifestyle, and you're setting a beautiful example for your family and for your community. For anyone listening that might be on the fence about scheduling a call to chat with us about how we might be able to help them, what would you say?
I would say I wish I'd done it much sooner. I wish I had gotten off the fence much quicker. I think, we are also programmed to think in some way that investing in ourselves should, like, we look at it the way we look at everything. Like, what's the balance? And is this worth it? And the interesting thing about why I sat on the fence for quite a bit of time before I reached out to you is that I somehow wanted like a proof point that it was going to be worth it for me, worth the investment for me. And what I realized, probably again 3 or 4 months in, is that it was actually the action of taking the step and making the investment that actually got me unstuck, right? Like that actually everything that came after it came from being willing to invest and know that actually I'm the only one that can make that investment worth it or not.
Right.
And in the end, that's what I would just say is like, I think I spent so much time ruminating. And, even before then, I can think of like dozens of times over 10 or 15 years that a gym membership or an app or something that I wanted for nutrition or fitness felt like, oh, I should just be able to do this on my own. I don't need to spend money on it. And now I see that quite literally that mindset is what was keeping me stuck. And so that's what I would say is that we each are worth the investment. And the investment is the flag or the stake in the ground that you're going to move forward in something that you're committed to. And so that's my pitch for why folks should get off the fence.
Yeah,
And again, there's
no,
not a day that goes by that I do not regret. And I don't live with a lot of regret in general, but that I do not regret starting sooner. This is the only thing in my life that I ever will feel like I wasted time before I started. And I can still feel great about doing it every day, but get off the fence. That's my pitch.
Well, I appreciate you. I love the conversation and I'm just so thrilled for everything that you've experienced and will continue to experience in your life, from the investment and commitment that you made to yourself and to the process. I don't need to say anything else. I think you've covered it all and then some, and been a beautiful example of what it looks like when, someone does make that commitment and is willing to get uncomfortable and take the time and energy to develop the skills and the tools through our coaching process, and ultimately, like we said, build your own personal operating system. So now you've got the tools to be able to continue to excel on your own, and you just keep raising the floor as to what's you're capable of, and what's a non-negotiable, and how you set the standards in your life, Kylie. And that's what I love about you guys so much, and I'm excited to just see how things continue to progress for you, and obviously always have you as part of our community. So thank you for taking the time to share all of that with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben, for having me and for everything through the years.
My pleasure.